go ahead and get started. So, just as a form of introduction, my name is Ashley Sorrell, and I work in graduate student professional enhancement as the assistant director, as well in the Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching as a consultant. And so I'll pass it off. Many of you already know us, but Morris, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. I'm Morris Grubbs, Director of Professional Enhancement for graduate students here in the grad school. Also Assistant Dean and do a few other things besides professional enhancement. But it's good to see you all. Thanks for coming. And Chad?
Hi, everybody. Chad Gilpin. I'm the Program Manager for Graduate Student Professional Enhancement.
So since there aren't a ton of folks in the room, we do want to start with, or like to start with, some introductions, just so we know who our potential participants will be in GradTeach Live and kind of what draws you to teaching. So I'm just asking for name, department, year, and to answer the question of what part of teaching do you find most fulfilling? And so we'll just go ahead. I'll call on people as I see them on my screen. So Hayu?
So my name is Huayu Chen. I am from Communication Department, and I am in the third year PhD program. I'm teaching communication theory and interpersonal communication now.
And what about teaching? What do you find to be the most fulfilling part of it?
I believe is getting some support, not only from my cohort, but also sometimes from my students. I feel like instructor is not only the person who motivates students, but also students motivate us.
Yeah, that's good. Ina?
Hey, my name is Anna Perscalo. I'm from the Department of Sociology. I'm a fourth year. What really moves me about teaching, the reason why I'm passionate about it is mainly because of my students. I like to engage with them beyond the classroom, whether that be helping them with their own professional development, like applying for grad school themselves or applying for some kinds of jobs or internships. I mean, the reason that I got into this was to be able to help them in ways that my own professors had helped me. I never thought that I'd see myself in grad school or doing research, so I want to kind of like pass that torch and, ignite them in the same ways that I was ignited.
Great. Nadia?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nadia Cisse, a first-year PhD student in the College of Communication and Information. I currently teach persuasive speaking. And what I've loved so far about the course is seeing my students on day one anxious about speaking, nervous and jittery, and by the end of the semester saying that they feel confident enough to speak in front of a room of people. And that just sets my heart on fire.
Oh, yeah. And that kind of speaks to your talents as a teacher as well, that you can get students to that point over the course of just one semester.
Thank you.
Stephen.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stephen Farley. I'm a third year student in the College of Education, specifically the Educational Policy and Evaluation Department. Relatively new to being a TA. Well, I guess technically it's my second year, but I teach a first year seminar, and I really within the College of Education, and I really enjoy watching my students come in as shy and timid freshmen. And then by the end of the semester, it's just great seeing them have more confidence and being involved in student organizations, at least most of them. So I love watching and being part of that development process.
Absolutely. Thank you. Eleanor?
Hi, I'm Eleanor Hyde. I'm a fourth year PhD student in the College of Communication. And my favorite thing about teaching is seeing the light come on for students when I'm able to convey a concept in a way that they really get it on like a visceral level. And they're like, oh, that's a hard thing to fake. And so seeing that happen is really gratifying.
Great. Prashanta?
Hi, I'm Prashant Pokhrel. I'm a third year PhD student and a teaching assistant. So this is basically my first year as a teaching assistant. And well, I like my students, like being like amazed by what the computer softwares or like the basic CAD designs can do. So which is really satisfying.
Yeah. So kind of tapping into that curiosity part of teaching. Emily?
Hey everybody, my name is Emily Smart. I am a last year, I'm just going to say it that way. I'm a last year in the political science department, and I am currently teaching civil rights and civil liberties, and that is great. And the thing I love most about teaching is when students are able to connect what they're learning in my class with like the outside world, and then it matters to them. So it doesn't matter like what I'm teaching, but as long as they can connect it to their real lives and find value, like that is very fulfilling for me.
Great. And Harold?
Hi everyone, my name is Harold Akrofi. I'm in my first year PhD chemistry student, and what I like a lot, or what I like most about teaching, is the in-person aspect of teaching, where I get to interact with different students from different places and different backgrounds, and then being able to use one platform or one means to teach all these different people. So I like getting to have an idea of how everyone understands things, and then being able to meet them at that point of their understanding.
Great. And so we had Kimberly just join us. And Kimberly, we're just doing brief introductions. Just your name, your year, program, and what, for lack of a better terms here, what excites you about teaching, or what part of teaching do you find most fulfilling? Probably still getting organized there. Well, we'll go ahead. We'll return to Kimberly here maybe later on in our session. But just to give you an overview of what this session is going to do, first we're going to talk about GradTeach Live. Some of you are probably wondering, what in the world is this? What if you have been nominated, for example, by your department or TA advisor? You're probably wondering what this is about. So we're going to talk about that and its origins. And then we're going to talk about the goals and purpose of this initiative, and also kind of how you want to start thinking about the presentation or the talk you are going to give as part of GradTeach Live. I started with that question about, what you find fulfilling about teaching, because what I heard in a lot of your answers are your goals for your students, which plays into a large part of our philosophy and pedagogy. So I'm hoping some of what I heard might make it into your talks as you go about structuring those and practicing them. Now, at the last 30 minutes or so, we are going to invite two former winners of GradTeach Live to offer their advice, tips, how they approach the ways in which they structured their talk around their philosophy and examples. So they'll join us in about the last 30 minutes of this session. But for now, I am going to share my screen with our little PowerPoint here and turn it over to Morris to tell us a little bit about the origins and purpose of GradTeach Live.
All right, perfect. Thanks everyone for sharing your or expressing your passion. I mean, it's clearly very palpable in this room that we all find it so valuable to be in the classroom and to work with students. So that's the prerequisite for being here today, and you all certainly have shown that. So just a little bit about the history. This is an offshoot of the worldwide 3-minute thesis competition, and it started in Australia back in 2008 and just took off, spread around the world pretty quickly. Almost all research universities have a 3-minute thesis competition that's focused on research. So we've been we've had the 3-minute thesis focused on research at UK for about 13 years now. A few years ago, I guess it was 5 or so years ago, we decided we wanted to create a counterpart to the research-focused 3-minute thesis and create a competition that is similar but focuses on teaching. So that's what this is, affectionately known as GradTeach Live. And the traditional 3-minute thesis on research is Grad Research Live. The Grad Research Live is in the fall, GradTeach Live is in the spring. And we worked hard along the way to make sure that the prize money was also on par with the research-focused competition. As far as we know, we're one of the very, very few universities to have a teaching version of the 3-minute thesis. So we hope that this continues. This will be I think the 5th competition. It started in 2019 and then COVID hit and we canceled it that year, and then it retreated into Zoom, and we had it for a year or so in Zoom, and we've returned it now to in person. So that's just a little bit about the history. So, at research universities, we hear a lot of talk, of course, about research that gets the prominence usually. So this is an effort to try to put teaching on the prominent stage here at UK, at least, alongside research, and to talk about teaching out in the open, like research is talked about, and to begin to try to get more attention paid to it, to showcase it and so forth. So this particular competition is an effort to put the work of graduate teaching assistants on par with the work of graduate research assistants. And almost every year, Ashley and I give an orientation for new teaching assistants. We do that twice a year, and we usually have an informal survey or poll or something asking if the new TAs would rather be research assistants, and many of them raise their hand and say, yes, I would rather be a research assistant. So part of our job at that orientation is to make the case for how meaningful, how valuable a TA-ship is, way beyond the tuition scholarship and the stipend that you're getting, that it really does open up possibilities for you that would otherwise not be available. So it's clear that all of you appreciate the experiences that you've gotten, and you want to continue this. So that's just a little bit about the history and sort of why we do this. Ashley.
To provide even more motivation for you all to showcase your teaching talents at the GradTeach Live event, there are monetary prizes involved for the first, second, and third place winners. You can see those amounts here on the screen. But there's also a People's Choice winner, and this is similar to what we do with the 3MT Grad Research Live. Who's been to a Grad Research Live or participated in 3MT? Just a virtual show of hands.
And, out of this experience that you're having with teaching and the passion that you clearly have, you should also be thinking about the scholarship of teaching and learning.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a big area of research at research universities that continues to evolve and gain prominence. So that's another reason why we established this, to try to encourage more research in the area of teaching and learning. Next slide.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Just one thing about the People's Choice Award. So we encourage you to invite your friends and family out to the event, because the People's Choice Award is audience voted. and it comes with a monetary prize as well. You can win first place and People's Choice, etc. So we really encourage you to bring out all of your supporters, maybe even your students, to the event if you choose to participate. Just some important dates to keep in mind. Now, all of these dates are on the website that hosts the GradTeach Live information, and you can see maybe Chad can put that link in the chat for us so that you'll have it on hand. But the registration deadline, we have extended it a little bit. This is just to let us know that you intend to participate, is 8 a.m. on February 7th. You don't necessarily have to do the registration deadline or pre-register, but it just gives us an idea of what to expect and the numbers. What you must do is the preliminary round submission, and that deadline is February 14th at 8 a.m. And the form for that is also on that same website. So we ask that you record a video of your presentation like you were in person giving it. You will do this via Zoom or whatever video recording software might work best for you, and upload that to Qualtrics. What we will then do is send those videos out to judges. We draw a lot on the staff at the Center for Enhancement of Learning and Teaching to help us judge these videos in the preliminary round. And then we will choose finalists to move on to the final round. And if you're a finalist, you'll be notified by February 22nd. Now, the event will be in person, the finals, and it's a leap year, so it's easy to remember this date, February 29th at 5 p.m., and we'll be in the Esports Lounge of the Cornerstone building. We find that to be a very welcoming space and just the right space for these types of talks and presentations. If you have any questions about these deadlines or the preliminary rounds, hopefully we'll have some time at the end here, or you're always free to reach out to Chad or myself. All right. So Morris, you will talk about the purpose of GradTeach Live.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that we've already alluded to is the importance of making explicit to a larger audience what we do as teachers and why we do it. And that's what you'll be doing in essence in your presentation. So part of the whole purpose of GradTeach Live is to showcase the similarities and the differences in teaching approaches across the disciplines. So, if you're in the audience watching this, you're going to really see quite a wide range of different approaches to teaching. And as graduate students, that opportunities to get outside the walls of your department are rare. And this is one of those great opportunities to do that and to see what's going on in other parts of the campus. So this allows you to further develop and practice speaking about what you do in ways that engage audiences both inside and outside the classroom. So very valuable skill to use here while you're in grad school, but certainly also once you graduate in your career. So, the part of the question here is how do you craft a 3-minute presentation? And we'll go through that a little bit, but how do you do it so that it has a hook at the beginning, it has an engaging middle to it, and that it closes in such a way that it's satisfying to you and to the audience, and maybe even thought-provoking, memorable, and so on. So that's the challenge of creating sort of a story with a beginning, middle, and an end. This allows you then to practice the art of distilling complex topics, and doing that in such a way that it's understandable, memorable, and applicable in some instances, depending on the topic. This is allowing you to showcase the art of relating to your audience. Very important, being able to read your audience. Now, there's not going to be a lot of interaction in this particular environment in the competition, but you'll be talking about how you do relate to your students and how you do gauge their understanding and how you do adapt, and how agile you are in changing on the spot if you need to make sure that they're understanding the material. So those are sort of the three overall points here. You know, the role of storytelling, the role of distilling, and that ability then to use the empathic sort of imagination to imagine what it's like not to know what it is you're teaching. So you're having to put yourself in the perspective of your students. Ashley?
So what exactly are we or the judges looking for in these submissions and talks? Now, there was a question in the chat that Chad is facilitating right now about the expectations of the preliminary video. But overall, in general, this will be 3 minutes. You'll have 3 minutes and 1 slide, and the slide should be static, so not a lot of animation over animation, right? Just one static slide. And here are some aspects we are looking for. One is the communication and articulation of one part of your teaching philosophy. Virtual raise of hands, how many have a draft or a teaching philosophy statement in the works? So some of you do. If you do not have like a full teaching philosophy statement, that is not necessarily required for this. We're not asking for that. We're asking that you have an idea of one particular aspect of how you approach teaching and why you approach it in that way, why you think that is impactful or effective to student learning. And so not necessarily a whole philosophy statement, because you're only going to choose one part of that, right? And you're going to describe why you use that particular approach to teaching and articulate the value of that approach as you see it play out in student learning and in the classroom. Now, these points I'm going over are also points that will be on the judging and scoring rubric. So we also want to see the second part, 2 main parts of the talk. One is an overview of that approach to teaching, that part of your philosophy, an explanation of that, and 2, illustrating, showing us how you put that approach philosophy in action. So essentially, this is kind of how you're drafting and outlining a teaching philosophy statement in general. We always emphasize the need to be specific, right? We want to see you in the classroom. And this is a way to start that process. This is probably a more challenging way, but to really encourage your own reflection on your teaching choices. And so how you put that philosophy in practice in the classroom. You want to think of an engaging classroom example and showcase that in your talk. You want to make sure the example aligns with, is related to your teaching philosophy. For example, you don't want something that's misaligned. Say an aspect of your approach and philosophy is really focused on, student-centered learning, students having agency in their learning and how they learn. So you have a class, that's your philosophy, your approach. But say your example is about how you create engaging lectures, right? Those two things don't necessarily align. So making sure the example and the philosophy are in alignment, you are speaking to that approach. Again, avoiding any disciplinary or educational jargon. I don't know if that so much will be an issue in this context, in this initiative or competition. It is something we see in Grad Research Live, particularly with the disciplinary jargon. And we really want you just to inspire audience curiosity to know more about your teaching, to know more about your classes, to really want to maybe take your classes one day. And so you do this by really bringing in and developing those examples, or that example that you are going to talk about in your presentation. A third aspect is just effective communication. So we want you to show your enthusiasm for teaching. I don't think that's going to be an issue for the folks in this room. It was pretty clear from the introductions and what you find fulfilling that there is a authentic enthusiasm within each of you. You'll want to think about, not so much in the preliminary videos. I know it's difficult. You'll be, in front of a screen. The way we present in front of a screen is very different than the way we present in front of an audience. But when you go to practice, you do want to think about your presence, right? Your pacing, your eye contact, your confidence in what you're saying. And you also want to be sure you're spending adequate time both on explaining the approach, your philosophy, and on the example. And so if you're only mentioning the example as an afterthought, that's an interesting question, Eleanor. If you're, maybe Chad can address that. If you're only thinking of the example as an afterthought, it might make the presentation less effective because we're not really able to see that philosophy in action, right? And again, one clear, static, and legible slide, no animations. We've had trouble running into this on our ends because we bring the slides with us to upload. And so if you have animations, we bring them as PDFs. It's not going to work. So one static slide. I know that'll be hard, but that's part of the challenge. So it's really about telling your teaching story. We want to be able to imagine you in the classroom teaching, to really almost, we'll see you up on the stage, but kind of be able to transition that into the classroom as well. But the hard thing, I think, is not only you in the process of teaching, but also how you're engaging students, how your students are engaging in the process of learning. And that's where your example will really kind of hook us into that. And so there are two examples here from our two previous first place winners of GradTeach Live. And we're going to watch these real quick, and then we're going to hear from, I'll introduce our guests here, and then we're going to hear from them advice on how they structured their talk, what motivated them to take part in this initiative. So first we have, I'm going to show you Dr. Rashid Flowers, his winning presentation. And I'm actually going to stop sharing the PowerPoint to go to the YouTube. Give me a minute to navigate this here. Okay. Sorry. You think I would be used to Zoom by now. All right. So the problem is my escape key apparently decided to quit working on my computer. But here we go. Let's do what we can. All right. I am not going to put it in full screen because, well, maybe. All right. Can you all hear?
No, Ashley, we cannot hear.
Okay. So I'll say, instead of just trying to figure all this out right now, my apologies. These are on the GradTeach Live website. We do encourage you to watch them. I do want to go ahead and move forward to speak with our GradTeach Live winners from 2022 and 2023. My apologies on my end for the technical difficulties. You are probably right, but I think I'm just going to move forward for now. Has anybody been on the website to watch the examples? Okay, good. All right, then I am not repeating something you've already done. All right, so let's move to the advice portion of this presentation. First, we have Dr. Rashid Flowers. He is an assistant professor of sports leadership in the College of Education. And we have Daria Goncharova. She is a PhD candidate in the Department of English and a primary instructor of the Department of Writing, Rhetoric, and Digital Studies. So welcome both. Thank you so much for joining us to talk to our potential participants in GradTeach Live. We're excited to have you here and to hear your advice, tips for structuring their talks and presentations. So first, I want to start with Dr. Flowers. I'm wondering if you can talk about what motivated you to take part in GradTeach Live. You saw the announcement, probably come out, the call for participants. What made you decide, yes, this is for me, I want to try my hand?
Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I'm in commute right now. I'm actually traveling with my team that I work with over at Asbury. I'm heading to Ohio, but I still wanted to have the opportunity to join. My primary motivation, I think, was time. I think when I was finishing my dissertation, I had a lot more time on my hands, especially with data collection, and so I said, "Hey, I need to take advantage of the opportunities that are afforded at the university." And I've always seen it, but I always made excuses about time. But it seemed like a really cool thing. It was an opportunity to really reflect on how do I teach and how am I able to articulate that. And it really forces you to be creative in the manner in which you share that, because you have one slide and 3 minutes. And so I think it's definitely a great kickstart for teaching philosophy. My also other primary motivation was that I wanted to be a professor. So this would have this gave me an opportunity to think about, what is my teaching style? How am I able to articulate that? One, for my own benefit of understanding how I teach, how I function, how I operate. And also, like, for conferences or speaking with other professors, this is like the elevator pitch of, if they ask you, like, how do you teach, like, how do you explain that, how you articulate that. Another thing is, it's a great opportunity for networking and seeing what other disciplines, what other people are doing, how do they teach. It's a great opportunity to see, like, other teaching styles. And then also public speaking, being able to speak about a subject in front of people. And sorry, I'm thinking of all these things as I'm talking. It's a way for you to explain your field in a way that people can understand, because, like I said, there's a lot of disciplines. And so you have to be able to break it down so people can understand it, especially if you do use some kind of jargon or terminology, but explain it in a way that is captivating. So that was my primary motivators for entering into the competition.
Great. Daria, what were your motivations?
I'm going to second everything that Rashid said. It was mainly the timing. I was in my 5th year of the PhD program, and I knew that I would be graduating in a year, meaning that I would be going on the job market in a few months. So GradTeach Live really gave me an opportunity to consciously reflect on what I've been doing in the classroom and how it connects to my research and my future career aspirations and my passion for teaching and how to talk about it effectively. So yeah, everything that Rashid said, that's what I experienced.
Great. So, Daria, speaking of the reflection aspect of preparing your presentation, what was your process of deciding what aspect of your teaching, your philosophy, and your example? What was your process of deciding what aspect you would focus on and also the example you would highlight? How did you, because we do a lot of teaching, right? How did you kind of narrow down, okay, this is at the heart of what I'm trying to do, or this is a very successful approach that I want to tell others about?
Yes.
Absolutely. Sorry,
Oh,
go ahead. Well, I know that I tried to keep an open mind going into the competition, and I had a few ideas before attending the version of this workshop last year, and it's really hearing other winners talk about their process and watching previous winners' videos that helped me to solidify my idea. I also worked backwards, meaning that I picked a few examples from my past teaching experiences that I thought were really interesting and strong, and then connected them to the pillars of my teaching philosophy, or like larger learning and teaching outcomes. And that helped me to narrow it down to kind of like 2 top picks. And that's what I brought to my friends and colleagues, my cohort, and I was like, hey, like, here are 2 examples that I have. Here's what I think they demonstrate. Which one you think like sounds cooler and be more like appealing to a larger audience? And they were really the ones who helped me figure it out. And I'll tell you that I thought that one of the exercises or assignments that I did with my students was more creative, more interesting, but it's not the one that I ultimately went with because it was much more specific to like my discipline. And I, as my colleagues helped me realize, would not necessarily be as easily translatable to everyone else's pedagogy. So I ended up talking about group contracts in my presentation and how I use group contracts with my students to help them improve their communication skills through structured reflection. And I can tell you that these 2 aspects, communication, reflection, and well, probably the third one, collaboration, these are really like the 3 pillars of my current teaching philosophy, things that I constantly highlight on the job market. And it's that preparing for GradTeach Live experience that really helped me solidify that in my teaching philosophy.
Very nice. I love the idea of starting backwards. I often, we often talk about that constructing your philosophy, try to start with the examples first and then connect and reflect on how that might relate to an overall philosophy of teaching. Rashid, what about you? What was your process in kind of deducing down to one example, one specific approach, or tying it to a philosophy?
Yes, that was a great explanation. Yeah, essentially, if you don't have a teaching philosophy, this is going to make you have one. But just kind of summarizing the teaching philosophy again, thinking about what are the key points from the teaching philosophy, and what examples, as was mentioned, that can come from that. So maybe picking a couple of key words from the teaching philosophy that you really want to focus on, and have the concrete examples of how that's put into action. Or maybe it's just one thing from the teaching philosophy that that you can really explain and go in depth on. But yeah, it all stems from the teaching philosophy, thinking about what's important for a person to highlight or really know from the way that you teach.
Great. So I think a lot of this challenge then becomes how you craft a story about your teaching from those examples. So, Rashid, can you recall how you then began to craft the actual talk so that it was, engaging, was drawing people, the audience into your teaching and being able to see you in the classroom?
Yeah. So once you have the idea of the points you want to talk about, then you begin to kind of bring those examples, and you want to think of it in a way of like, how do I captivate the audience? As you mentioned earlier, how do I leave them wanting to know more or very interested in maybe implementing in this in their own style? So I wrote a script in the outline to kind of help guide that process. These are the points I want to make. Here's what I want to address, and this is what I'm going to do. And then once that happened, that's when the recording happened. And believe me, you'll probably record multiple times. You should. If you get a perfect take the first time, then that's pretty amazing. But you'll probably end up recording multiple times because you'll think of things you want to say, or you'll have too much to say and you have to realize, like, what do I need to cut out? But an outline was really helpful in terms of crafting the discussion, and then having key points that I wanted to highlight in the midst of the talk.
Daria, did you have a similar process, or did you go about it differently, or had any additional steps you took?
I'm so glad this question came up because I had time to go over my preparation notes in the anticipation of this workshop, so I can tell you exactly my process. So after attending the workshop, like this one last year, I actually went on GradTeach school website and I watched videos of last year's winners. Rashid, yours was one of the ones I watched, and I still remember it so well. It gave me so much inspiration and ideas. If you haven't seen Rashid's video, go and watch it because he had a prop. It's just made it such a fun experience and kind of helped me realize that I can have a little bit of fun with this too, you know. But I watched Rashid's video and Kelly's video, and I created reverse outlines actually from their examples, while also kind of timing their portions to see like how much time they dedicated to introduction to their first point, second point. And that really helped me develop my idea into an outline, because Rashid, for example, I remember he had 3 clear points about his teaching philosophy, and each had its own examples. Mine didn't work the same way. Like I really just had this like one example that connected to my teaching philosophy. But then as I started breaking it down, I realized, well, I'm talking about group contract, but it's really in the service of communication, and I improved their communication through reflection. So there was still three main pieces that I needed to break down: like group contract, reflection, and how it improves their communication. And so that's what I did. Once I identified those 3 points, I was able to like develop my outline, and I went on this through 2 drafts of the outline. The first draft I showed to my academic friends only, and they helped me to like really clarify ideas and get rid of some of the jargon. And the second draft I showed to both my academic and non-academic friends, so people who have nothing to do with PhD programs. And they really helped me to make it a little bit more fun and even clearer, because like things that I didn't realize were the jargon, and my friends didn't also realize were the jargon, sounded like jargon to them.
I love that piece of advice to draw upon your non-academic friends as well, to read through the script or this kind of relates to my next question. Once you made it to the finals, how did you prepare leading up to the finals? Because the preliminary round is a video, and then the finals, totally different environment as far as in person in front of an audience. So what did you do to prepare for that transition in presentation styles even?
Practice, practice, practice. Yes, that's really the only thing you can do. Practice in front of the mirror, practice in front of other people, practice in front of the camera, and time yourself. And by the time I knew that I'm one of the presenters, one of the finalists, I started practicing not just the timing and memorization, but really like the emotions that I wanted to express. I wanted to make sure that because you have to memorize it. It's not something that you can just do on the spot, right? Because of the time and you have to memorize the text, but I didn't want it to sound too craft. So I really practiced the emotions, the kind of gestures that I will be doing. I also highly encourage you to think about where you will be standing in relation to the screen behind you, because that's something that I actually did not think about and had to decide on the spot, and it worked out really well for me, because when I was practicing, I kind of realized that I'm pointing to like one example and another example behind me, so I really need to be like standing right in front of the slide at like the center of it, so that I could still do the gestures.
That's a good point. Yeah. Rashid, what about you?
Yes, that's excellent. And yeah, definitely right. Practice, practice, practice. And then especially as she mentioned with non-academic friends, I did at least 2 or 3 times to present with them and then ask them, did you understand what I was talking about? Because if they can, then most likely then it's going to be a good presentation. Also working on the timing and doing it multiple times to ensure that your timing is consistent. And then if you find out where the finals are, you go into that room when no one's there, and maybe act it out yourself so you get comfortable presenting in that room, in that space. But yeah, practice is definitely the key to having a successful presentation. And I really like the point you made about emotions. Like, where do I want to make certain inflections? What do I really want to emphasize? Because that's going to be important in terms of the judges and really getting your point across and deciphering what you want to do and say. Yeah, but practice is definitely important. And then for me, as I said again, the outline was key because I memorized the outline. That helped me really get the talking points I wanted to address during the presentation.
So we have a little under 10 minutes here, and I want to pause to see if there are any questions in the room for our 2 first place GTL winners. Okay, so I'm curious, just maybe 2 last questions here. In the end, and I think you all kind of addressed this throughout, but to be more explicit, in the end, what did you gain from participation in GTL, in GradTeach Live? Daria,
well, it definitely helped me articulate my teaching philosophy. It also added a nice line to my CV and some material, that I can link, like again, my CV or my website if you're planning on like building your website, going into the job market. And it's, I think, also having this video, having something material that you can go back to and reflect on is so helpful in so many ways. because I also rewatched it in preparation to my first job market interviews and kind of really reflected on my presence and how I present myself to the audience, because we all have teaching personas, but those are different from maybe how we present ourselves to the colleagues or like future colleagues. Yeah, someone that we want to impress, yet also be like part of their collective, their community. So it really helped me grow, I'd say, both like in professional and personal way. Yeah.
Great. Rashid, what did you ultimately gain?
Yeah, like was mentioned, it's an awesome thing to put on your CV as an award. It's a very prestigious award to win, because there's a lot of great people that submit videos and have submissions. So to win or be amongst the top 3 or even make the finals is a big accomplishment. Another thing is another connection, awareness of the CELT office on campus, because it's been a big help in being a professor at the university now. So understanding that there's a center, there's a place that can help with teaching and learning and becoming a better professor, that's incredible. So I'm grateful, super grateful for that. And then also too, the potential for monetary compensation, like that's pretty cool. That's awesome. I'm definitely grateful for that. It definitely helped a lot too. And also the opportunity to connect with other people across campus and learn and reflect yourself. Like, what am I doing teaching wise? What are other people doing that I can learn from? So I'm definitely going to reach out to Dr. G and ask her about her project group thing, because in class, I'm thinking about implementing some kind of group project contract to better help facilitate a group project. So this is an example right there.
I love
Absolutely,
hearing
Rashid.
that.
I'd be happy to share any of my materials with you. Yeah, feel free to shoot me an email.
I love hearing that, because I think, in academia, we don't really talk about teaching. We don't really talk about what we're doing in the classroom. And so this opportunity as a way to facilitate those conversations, or to bring those conversations, bring our teaching out into the open, I think is a great thing. One final question, and that's just any parting advice, any additional tips that maybe my questions wouldn't have touched on that you would like to share before we log off.
Yes, I would say have fun. It's supposed to be a fun experience. You should have fun doing this. You should be enlightened. This should be an opportunity to enjoy yourself. It shouldn't be burdensome or complicated. It should be a fun process, because you learn about yourself and you have opportunity to be able to present and meet other people. Ultimately, it should be fun and a learning experience.
I think that's a great advice and something that I would definitely echo. Have fun, because I'm a very detail-oriented person. I will give you the advice on the other side of the spectrum. Think about your slides too. I don't know how much you talked about it in the first portion of this workshop, but I think this slide is very important too, because it helps to visualize all of your main points, what you're talking. And I think if you have something that your students have produced that like ties into that example or like teaching philosophy that you're presenting, if you can showcase it, that's excellent, because that was like one of the things that I really wanted to make clear, and I feel like Ashley also emphasized in at least that part of the workshop that I got, before we transitioned into the question. Like it's about you, but it's also about the relationship that you built with your students. So that think about, I guess, how you can bring it into your presentation, how you can bring your students in there, because it's ultimately all that we do it for them, right? And we try to be better teachers for them.
Very good point about the slide. It was kind of a you all could do better, and I think very good there. So let's take a moment to thank Ariane Receipt for taking time out of their Friday to talk with us, give us some advice and tips as we move forward. So thank you all so much. We hope to see you if you're available at this year's finals and event. And Chad has a.
Hey, Ashley, I just thought we could address a couple of the questions that came in the chat. It looks like Eleanor had to leave, so she won't be here to benefit from that answer, but I thought we could kind of discuss it openly. First of all, Nadia's question about the video submission requirements. We don't have a ton of requirements on that. We recommend you guys use Zoom just because the university provides it to you. So if you use your UKY account, you can log in. I think it looks better if you can do the presentation mode. So put your slide up and present it and deliver it that way. If you choose to do that, make sure you use the large thumbnail so you're not, a tiny little image up in the corner when our judges are watching. If you can't figure out how to do that, that's not a big deal because we do require you to submit your slide via PDF on that form as well. So you'll have your video recording and your PDF. So if you can't get the slide to work in the video, we can always just reference the PDF. And then there's no reason for any video editing whatsoever. We don't expect you to be a good editor or require you to do any of that. And in fact, it's not going to help you at all because you won't be able to, edit yourself when you do the live event. So don't get fancy with that. Just practice, stand in front of the video screen and deliver. And if your video is longer than the 3 minutes, that's fine as long as you're we understand it takes you a second after you hit, record and to find the stop button. So don't worry about that. Just make sure your presentation is 3 minutes. Morris and Ashley, Eleanor's question about QR codes. Where do you guys stand on that? On the one hand, it's like it is still a static slide, so it doesn't introduce the technological issues we've run into. On the other hand, it's kind of skirting the rules. So how do you guys feel about that?
I want to be clear that my intention is not to skirt the rules. That's why I'm asking now.
No, I don't mean, I don't mean that. I mean, so this grew out of the 3MT, which has its own rules that you're not allowed to do anything like that. There's no technological stuff. On the other hand, when we started this, we allowed videos